Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Texas City Tales. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Ramari.
And today we're joined by John Branson, our Executive Director of Management Services. John, thanks so much for coming.
Good morning.
Oh, this is a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I know your title, I just said it, but your unofficial title, I feel like, is the man who knows every answer to every question I ever have. So this should be a really informative episode.
Well, I appreciate that. But you're putting a lot of pressure on me.
It is a lot of pressure.
We all know that's not true.
So in this episode, we're kind of doing a bit of a wrap-up of Community Matters 2030. And so I kind of want to go back to the beginning, if we can, because, John, you were there at the inception of Community Matters 2030. So can you remind us of how it was created and formulated?
Sure, Ramari, and that's a great question. Community Matters was really a collaborative effort of the entire community. Mayor Johnson at that time, shortly after he was elected in November of 2020, decided that what he wanted to do was put a plan together that would focus on the needs of the community for the next 10 years. You may recall back in 2000, the city had a plan, and that was a community plan, goals and objectives for the community. And then there was another plan that was put together in 2010, which was called Vision 2020. Mm-hmm. And this was really just a follow-up to that. But I think what was key is, you may recall, this was shortly after the election in November of 2020, and there was a lot of angst across the country. And so the mayor, he wanted to put together an effort that brought the community together, utilizing a wide variety of community members. And he thought about how could we do that? And he came up with the theme, Community Matters 2030, a plan for the next 10 years from that 2020 time period to 2030. And one of the key components of that was, if you look at the word community in Community Matters, the last several letters spell out unity. And that was a key that he wanted to see the community come together in unity and develop a plan for the future.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of Community Matters 2030 is that it really does take in perspectives from all different walks of life, different backgrounds, different perspectives on the city. So when I came in to this position and looked at it, I thought, okay, I know what the main objectives are going to be. It's usually public safety and public works and things like that. But some of them surprised me. And I think it's really interesting to see, this is what our community is most concerned about. It's so helpful and kind of a refreshing take on it. So what types of groups were involved in giving input?
So that's a great question. There were a total of 41 participants that were involved in this effort. There were several members of staff, department heads primarily, members of the city commission, and then individuals that were in all walks of the community were involved. Everything from teachers, administrators, students from College of the Mainland at that particular time, and then residents who were interested in the well-being of Texas City. If I may, so what happened was the mayor and the city commission invited those individuals to come to an initial meeting. And at that meeting, the discussion kind of ensued about what's important to you in Texas City now, and what would you like to see changed over the next 10 years? It was really a collaborative effort, and individuals made comments about things that they thought were important to them and how they would like to see them changed. And of course, you had mentioned public safety. That was a concern. As I mentioned, there's a lot of unrest in the country at that particular time, or uneasiness, maybe that's a better way to say it. Not so much in Texas City, but we saw what was going on around the country. And so public safety was a concern. Schools, that was another one of the concerns. And there were a wide variety of things: beautification of the community, revitalization of the community, just a whole host of different things that this group came up with. There were actually a total of about 25 different topics that people brought up. And so what was determined after that first meeting was, while this committee came up with those topics, let's go out and let's get input from the residents of Texas City and see if those are the priorities, and or which ones were of a higher need at this particular time. And so what transpired was the library director at that time, Luke Alvey, he put together a survey, and he made that available on all the city social media network platforms, and sent that out in the community, let people respond. I think there was a 2-week time period where people could respond and take those 25 different areas that were discussed, prioritize them, and then maybe consolidate those a little bit into matters of focus, areas that we could specifically focus upon. And what they ended up doing was they narrowed that down to 11 specific matters of focus. And again, this was the community that provided input. If I remember right, there was something like 239 people that responded to this survey, and were able to actually provide their input, what they wanted to see in Texas City.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's even more input than I realized from the initial committee. So I love that. That makes so much sense. I love, too, that you talked about like kind of consolidating, because when I go through the plan, that was one thing I noticed, is that, I mean, we know that the departments all work really closely together on projects, but that's kind of reflected in the book as well and in the plan. So community engagement was one area where you kind of see it sprinkled through a bunch of different sections. Can you talk a little bit about some of the programs and initiatives we've done with that?
So one of the key areas that relates to that was, I think the mayor wanted to find out what was important to the community. So he created this initiative called Community Conversations with Mayor Johnson. And he started it up shortly after that time period, where he would go out in the community to different locations throughout the city on a quarterly basis and literally have a conversation with the residents. And it was really great, because you don't see that in a lot of communities. A lot of times the mayor and the commissioners, they're not available to the community, but what he wanted to do was to go where they live and actually have a conversation with them. And that started early on after he became mayor, and it's continued up until this date.
Yeah, I love those events. That's kind of in my wheelhouse. So I love that two-way conversation, and really no topic is off limits, and there's so many city staff members there as well. So it's really a great way for people to talk directly to, the experts in their area of concern or curiosity even. Even I learn stuff when I go there. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that that's how that works. So if people haven't been, I would definitely encourage them to go, because it's a great way to learn about the city.
Another thing that he did in regards to community engagement was he developed a program called the Fatherhood Initiative. And I think that was a really kind of unique way to help connect the community, both adults and youth in the city. And there were several different things, events that he held, where it was designed towards adult family members, fathers, and providing little things that maybe they may not have received over time. Things like baiting a hook and fishing, or financial matters, how to balance a checkbook. Those were two of the ones that he specifically had in the Fatherhood Initiative. He had a games night where just individuals could come out and play games. It was really a great, I think, a great program to get out there and allow people to engage with one another. And that really is kind of the key here, is how can you engage better with your citizenry and with the individuals of the community. Another component that I think you've probably seen since the mayor's administration is our social media programs and services that we allow. For example, this podcast is a great example of how we can better stay in touch with and inform the community of what's going on. If you look at our Facebook, you look at our Twitter account, our Instagram, those are great ways that you can communicate with your citizenry. And of course, we hired an excellent communications director,
Woohoo, best interview ever.
City secretary, who oversees these podcasts, and it's really just been a way to stay better informed with our community, keep our community informed.
I appreciate
Agree.
that. But also, I really appreciate, too, like a lot of that made it sound like it was in the communications department's hands, which to some degree it is, but we are always getting pushed and encouraged to find new ways to reach even more people and be even more transparent, and I love that. This is really a place where open communication is encouraged, even not just allowed, but encouraged. And that makes our job so much easier and so much more fun too. So
One of the things that I liked about Community Matters, you can kind of see it along most of the matters of focus, is it told you what the community wants to see, but it didn't necessarily dictate how you have to do it. So like, for example, the youth programs, the mayor started the Fatherhood Initiative. And so that was the youth program because youth came out on a monthly basis learning how to fish, and that was a lot of fun, or learning how to cook, and they made steaks and stuff. But then we did camp podcast, or for the first time ever, we had a cheer camp. And so a lot of new programs stemmed from Community Matters.
absolutely. Yeah, even our new fall camp that's coming in Parks and Rec, that's the first time that we've had that. And they're already engaging tons of kids for that. Our basketball leagues, we have the new basketball clinics that are free. Yeah, there's been a lot of really cool programs that come out.
So I think that you all also started up a really neat program where you broadcast live the annual Lighted Christmas Parade.
Yes, we do. That's fun.
And that's new, right? I mean, that hasn't been done prior to Mayor Johnson's administration. That's another way to engage the community, because not everybody can go to those things, but it's also a way to show what's going on in Texas City, that Texas City is a vibrant, lively community with a lot of activities, a lot of programs and services for the entire community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know on social media, we try to really push for interactive content. So, we'll encourage it sometimes with giveaways, or tell us, what you want to see at this event or what you're most excited about. And really and truly, we take all of that feedback and incorporate it into future plans or the programs that are coming up. So for everybody who is already following us and engaged, thank you for that. If you're not, just go ahead and hit pause right now and go find us on social media and hit like or subscribe.
I wanted to mention one other thing, if you don't mind, about
Sure.
Community Matters 2030. There were really the top three priorities are important, and I think the city's done a great job on all three of those. The first priority was public safety, and that was ultimately it was divided into three different matters of focus in public safety, and that was the police department, that was the fire department, and then emergency management. And as I mentioned, there's been some really good things happen in all areas. In regards to the police department, one of the things that they focused on was community engagement, was the actual police department going out there and interacting with the community and being more proactive in the types of programs that they were doing to do exactly that. The Ministerial Alliance, I think, is a good example of that. That's a program that's been going on for many, many years, but it's continued, and it's a way for interested individuals that are involved in our local churches to interact with our local officials. Another program that they did, which was, and I may have the name wrong, but it was Coffee with the Cops. And that was a great program that gets people interacting with police officers in a situation that maybe they hadn't been to before, and they're more comfortable and more relaxed. Another priority that came out of public safety, the second one, was the fire department. And I think we all know that Texas City's growing. Matter of fact, if you look right now, we have over 5,000 new homes that are in the platting stage in one form or another. That, if you do the math on that, that's a lot of new residents that are coming to Texas City. A lot of that growth, but not all of it, and I'll talk about that in a moment, a lot of that growth was on the west side of town, on the west side of I-45. And our closest fire station to that was Fire Station number 3, which is located by College in the Mainland on Amber. And with the construction and everything that was going on, if there was a fire literally on the other side, on the west side of I-45, it could take them anywhere from 12 to 13 minutes to get there, let alone start suppressing the fire at that particular time. And once a home is fully engulfed, they can go up in literally minutes after that time period. So getting there in a very quick period of time was essential. And since Community Matters was initially created, Fire Station 4 was designed, built, and is now operational and is in service 24 hours a day. So that was accomplished. That priority in regards to fire has been accomplished. Another matter of focus related to public safety was emergency management. And one of the programs that was a focus there inside emergency management was the STEER program. And that's a program whereby residents through the state of Texas can register, and when emergency alerts, then they're connected to different agencies that can help them, everything from relocate to providing much needed services that they need. So those things were accomplished. The second highest priority matter of focus was economic development. And economic development is important in any community, especially in Texas City. We've got a huge industrial base here, and that provides the infrastructure, the necessary backbone of the community, our tax base, and allows us to do a lot of the great things that we do. But one of the things that came out of Community Matters 2030 and that particular goal was, how can we diversify our community and our tax base? And so one of the items that came out of that was the development of a strategic plan. And since that time, the Economic Development Corporation adopted the strategic plan called Pathways to Prosperity, which outlines different types of programs and industries to focus on. And another key component of that was to literally, how can we promote Texas City better? And they've made some really good strides on that as well. So that was the top priority for Community Matters, public safety.
A lot of good things.
So many.
I feel like, I don't want to say almost all, but at least, if I had to quantify, at least 55% of what we set out to accomplish in Community Matters 2030 has already been
Yeah.
checked off.
I think I even suggested that we might need to change the name to Community Matters 2025
Yeah.
because I feel like everybody's getting things done so fast and so much is happening all the time. I mean, it's really an exciting time in the city.
With economic development, well, I guess I should say, like, with a lot of these new platted properties and rooftops, as our city engineer likes to sometimes just call them, comes, economic development, and people typically just think of like new businesses, but that's not all economic development is. Can you speak about that?
So economic development is about job creation, job retention, and it's about also working with the existing businesses and how can we as a city better promote what they're doing and support them in their efforts. Economic development is there's a wide variety of different things that you want to focus on, but you want to retain your existing businesses. You want to create a workforce that can help support those businesses and grow those businesses, create new jobs, and help them become stronger partners in the community.
Yeah, I feel like the podcast has really allowed me to see kind of up close and personal some of the businesses that are existing already, and there's amazing services and products and things happening. I always say when we're finished, like, I'll keep asking questions until I learn something, and I always do. So I love that economic development is promoting so many of these businesses. Some of them have been here for decades, and it's almost where you kind of take it for granted. That has a negative connotation, but I think really the highlighting and pushing, forward their stories is just as important, like you were saying, as creating new jobs and development.
Jennifer, you reminded me of something else, and I briefly touched on it earlier, as Community Matters talked about, and the strategic plan that was developed, the Economic Development Strategic Plan, it talked about how we needed to do a better job of promoting Texas City. Mm-hmm. I think if you think about Texas City 20, 30 years ago, some people would have tied a negative connotation to it because of the industry, but that's really no longer the case. Texas City is really about making things happening, and Texas City is growing and thriving. There's a lot of really good things going on in Texas City right now. A lot of other communities would be jealous to have. Mm-hmm. You look at our parks and recreation amenities that we have here, mm-hmm. and we've got more acres of parks than any other city in Galveston County. You look at the facilities that we have here. You look at the Doyle Convention Center and the natatorium and the outdoor aquatic facility. Mm-hmm. Not many communities have one of those, let alone all three of those. The fitness facility, the Nestler Center, and it goes on and on. The parks and the amenities that are at those parks. Texas City is very fortunate, and residents utilize those parks and those facilities on a regular basis. And quality of life is really an important underlying matter of focus, if you will, in regards to Community Matters 2020. Beautification and revitalization was another area of concern. If you look at beautification in the community, there are plans to, once the highway construction is finished on I-45, there are plans to create landscaping and really nice aesthetics along the roads and under the underpasses, at the underpasses in the community. At 146 and Palmer Highway, there's improvements planned there. So beautification is a key matter in regards to Community Matters 2030. the area where we are right now, the old city hall, this is called the Greater Chelsea Manor area, and there's plans to revitalize this area, landscaping improvements. What's interesting about the Chelsea Manor area is we have a community development department, and one of their focuses is this area of town. They actually have funding from the Community Development Block Grant Program that allows them to do landscape improvements and beautification projects in this particular area alone. You may have noticed recently that there's some banners that were actually put up a year ago, but they're throughout the Lower Chelsea Manor area. In addition to, we've got we've got a public works yard that's down here along Fifth Avenue that has recently been protected with decorative screening, and that's all part of the Community Development Block Grant Program funding that can only be used in this area, the low to moderate area, and that's kind of another aspect or spinoff of Community Matters 2020 to beautify Texas City, and that's just one example.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about even as you were talking about the parks. You know, growing up here and then now being back, so many things have changed for the better. You know, I used to work at Nestler Pool, and now it's this huge, you know, almost water park, you know, and it's got the lazy river and the slides. And I don't know, I just feel like everything is getting better and better. And so I know that as someone who was raised here, coming back, it was very exciting, you know, to see that like your hometown is flourishing.
As you were talking, one of the things that kind of came to mind is all of these things are great. They're things that I utilize as a resident of Texas City. And we just finished up, you know, budget season. Mm-hmm. Happy New Year, everyone. And we did so by actually lowering our tax rate. How are we able to continue to like accomplish all of these things and not go up on taxes?
So I think a lot of that does have to do with our industry partners that we have here in the community. The ad valorem taxes, which pays for the city services here in the community, is based on actual value on the ground. And of course, the industry that we have, the long-standing industry partners that we have here, and the new industry coming in, that new value helps, allows us to keep our tax rate what it is, and or in this particular case this past year, lower it to the no new revenue rate, while really and truly not eliminating any services. And that's really a testament to what's going on in Texas City nowadays with the growth both in residential and some of the commercial growth that we're seeing as well.
So we've talked a lot about things that people may have seen since the inception of the plan. What can we look forward to seeing in the, I mean, I jokingly said 2025, but, you know, between now and 2030.
Oh, that's actually like right around the corner.
Right? What sort of things do you think we might see, or do you hope we see?
Well, first of all, Romari's right. She just said 2025. That's
I'm like,
right
oh,
around
wow.
the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how time flies, and
Yes.
there's been a lot accomplished since then. But what types of things, you asked, can we see over the next maybe 5 years that might be new to Texas City? A lot of people don't know this, but the city of Texas City owns a piece of property called Shoal Point. And for those of you that don't know about Shoal Point, the city owns 325 acres of land out off of Texas City Prominent, basically it's in the Gulf, if you will. It's between here and Galveston. And the Texas General Land Office, they own another 625 acres of property there. And so that combines to be a total of 1,000 acres of property that can be developed into commercial or industry projects. Right now, the city's working with several different partners to develop that site. One of those, which we're really excited to see, is we've got a short-term lease with a LNG bunker port project, a liquefied natural gas project that will be able to provide energy efficient, low cost energy fuel for ships and vessels that navigate in and around this area and throughout the Gulf. So that's exciting. We also, right now, we have out for proposals. We have requests for proposals for a long-term lease for companies to occupy additional land out at Shoal Point. So I think what you're going to see over the next 5 years is actually development out at Shoal Point, which is going to help diversify our tax base as well. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
That is exciting. And from what I've heard, what, kind of in passing, sounds like big things coming for Shoal Point and other industry partners, doing some major expansions and new projects. So it's an exciting time.
It really is. And if I can mention one other thing about some exciting things that are to come, and this relates to economic development. Of course, the 6th Street Revitalization District has been a focus of the Economic Development Corporation in the city of Texas City for many years. A real exciting project is coming to 6th Street and will open up next spring, probably in April or May of 2025, and that's the new Community Plaza. And that's approximately a 2.5 acre parcel of property that's going to have a wide variety of amenities, improvements to that site. Things like a dog park. So if you live in and around the east side of Texas City or the west side and you want to travel over, it's going to be a great venue to bring your dog and kind of relax in the new dog park. There's also going to be a spray ground or water feature that you can bring the kids to and they can enjoy. There's going to be a small performance pavilion. There's going to be some playground equipment. There's going to be a picnic shelter and pavilion, picnic tables. There'll be a lawn area where you can just come and hang out with your family. So it's really exciting time to see some of the improvements that are going to be occurring on 6th Street. And it's the Community Plaza project will open up next spring with a wide variety of programs at that facility as well.
I'm excited.
Me too. You had me at food truck.
Yeah, I was going to say the food trucks. Yeah. It's a great time to live in Texas City.
It is. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, John.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Definitely.
Thank you again to Mr. John Branson, the Executive Director of Management Services. Thank you to the City of Texas City for sponsoring this podcast. You can catch new episodes on Wednesdays on the city's Facebook page, YouTube, or wherever podcasts are streamed. Until next time, bye.